I have emotional stability. Not anymore. You don't. Poof. Someone once told you, time heals everything. Which is great, because that's exactly what you want to hear when your entire life just fell apart and your brain has decided to replay it like a low-budget Netflix drama on loop. So naturally, the question is, does time actually heal? Or is it just the universe's way of saying, wait it out and hope for the best? Because if time heals everything, then theoretically, you should be able to just sit on your bed, stare at the ceiling, ignore your responsibilities, and magically achieve emotional healing. Which, to be fair, a lot of people try. First, let's clarify something important. Time does not heal in the way painkillers heal. It doesn't delete emotional pain. It doesn't uninstall sadness. It doesn't patch your trauma recovery overnight like a software update. If anything, time is less like a doctor and more like that quiet friend who just sits next to you while everything is falling apart and occasionally goes, "You'll figure it out," which is both comforting and deeply unhelpful. The real reason people say time heals is because of something called temporal distance, which is just a fancy way of saying the further you get from something, the less aggressively it punches you in the face. At the beginning, grief and loss feels like your entire identity. You are not a person anymore. You are just the bad thing that happened. Breakup? That's your personality now. Betrayal? Congratulations, trust issues unlocked. Disappointment? Welcome to your villain origin story. But over time, something weird happens. You don't forget. You don't erase it. You just stop centering your entire existence around it. This is where the healing process actually begins. Not when the pain disappears, but when it becomes smaller than everything else in your life. And this is why healing takes time. Because your brain has to slowly process the emotional chaos, reorganize your thoughts, and rebuild your sense of self without the thing that hurt you, which is extremely inconvenient because humans prefer instant solutions. We want emotional healing the same way we want fast Wi-Fi. Immediately, reliably, and without buffering. Unfortunately, healing is more like downloading a massive update on slow internet. You're stuck watching the progress bar like, why is this still at 3%? I cried about this yesterday. Another key part of this is emotional processing. Because time alone doesn't fix anything. You can wait 10 years and still feel the same if you never actually deal with what happened. So, give time doesn't mean do nothing. It means feel the sadness, acknowledge the emotional pain, go through the uncomfortable process of self-reflection, and slowly build emotional resilience, which is way less catchy as a phrase. Now, during this process, something else starts to happen. Perspective shift. At first, everything feels personal. This ruined my life. I'll never recover. This is the worst thing that could happen. Then, months later, you look back and go, okay, that was bad. But also, I was being a little dramatic. And then years later, you might even say, that actually taught me something. This is where personal growth and self-transformation come in. Because time doesn't just reduce pain, it creates space for meaning-making. You start turning pain into strength. You build inner strength. You develop emotional maturity, not because you wanted to, but because you didn't really have another option. This is also why healing is not linear. Some days you feel fine. Other days your brain wakes up and chooses emotional damage. You'll think you've moved on, and then suddenly remember something random at 2 a.m. and go, ah, yes. We're doing this again. This is completely normal. Non-linear healing is basically your brain's way of saying, we're progressing, but also I like chaos. Now let's talk about patience in healing, because this is the part everyone hates. You cannot rush healing. You can't speed run grief. You can't hack your way through trauma recovery. You can't force acceptance like it's a skipped cutscene. Healing follows natural cycles of life. Pain processing, understanding, renewal. And sometimes it loops back just to keep things interesting. At some point though, if you stick with the process, something shifts. You start rediscovering yourself. Not the version of you before the pain, but a slightly upgraded version with more emotional awareness and better coping mechanisms. You begin rebuilding identity. You learn self-compassion. You practice being kind to yourself instead of blaming yourself for still feeling sad. And slowly, very slowly, you stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start asking, what can I do with this now? This is where post-traumatic growth lives. Not in pretending nothing happened, but in recognizing progress. You realize you've endured pain you once thought would destroy you. You've developed emotional endurance. You've survived. And maybe even started thriving, which is honestly a plot twist. Of course, none of this happens in isolation. Support from friends and family helps. Social connection matters. Sometimes you need professional help because your brain is doing things above your pay grade. Healing can be shared, and that makes it slightly less terrible. At the end of the day, time as an ally doesn't mean time does the work for you. It means time gives you the space to do the work, to reflect, to understand your emotions, to let go, to grow, and eventually to move forward. So when people say time heals almost everything, what they actually mean is time plus emotional processing plus self-care plus patience plus support plus a concerning number of late-night thoughts heals almost everything, which is a lot less poetic. If you're going through something right now, just know this. The pain you feel today is not permanent. It's part of a longer human emotional journey. You're in the pain phase of the cycle. The learning and renewal parts are coming, even if it doesn't feel like it. So give time. Trust the process. Take responsibility for your healing, but don't rush it. Because one day, without realizing exactly when it happened, you'll look back and notice that it doesn't hurt the same anymore.
And if this video helped you understand your own healing process just a little better, do us a favor, like, subscribe, and stick around.